Australia took a 1-0 Ashes lead against England at Edgbaston on Tuesday in one of the all-time great Test matches. Australian skipper Pat Cummins and Nathan Lyon put on a 55-run ninth wicket partnership to defy England and reach their target of 281. Australia's victory, which was the narrowest Ashes win in terms of wickets since 1907, saw the visitors exact some revenge for their 2-wicket defeat on the same ground in 2005. If you can, Steve, I know this is probably asking a little bit much, but how would you sum up that first test?
Great test match, wasn't it? I always forget between home Ashes series how sort of consuming they are and how much that once they start, it's very difficult to concentrate on anything else because you have to follow them. You can try to get on with some work, but that's difficult. Sorry, bosses, I didn't do quite as much work between last Friday and Tuesday as I should have done. Great test match and could have gone right up to the last sort of couple of overs. It could have gone either way, couldn't it? You can't ask for more than that over 5 days. A lot of people are saying, England have lost. What should they do now? Should they have a whole different approach? And we'll perhaps come on to that in a second. But
yeah,
I think you've got to remember that it could have gone either way. It could easily have been England 1-0 up on Tuesday night if they got those last 2 wickets a bit quicker. So, yeah, if we have 5 matches like that, it's going to be a memorable summer, isn't it? We probably won't. We'll probably get a couple that are not as close as that, but just the latest in a long line of Ashes classics at home, isn't it?
Well, I hope there aren't many more like that because it won't be good for the heart. Well, the first day of the test saw a daring declaration by England with the score at 393 for 8. Joe Root was well placed on 118 with 4 overs of the day remaining. Much in the press and on social media has been made of England's decision to declare on the first day, with some people saying that it was perhaps a bit premature. What did you make of the decision to declare, Mark? Was it pivotal or immaterial in the grand scheme of the game? And do you think the criticism that's from some quarters is justified towards the decision to declare?
I don't think it's justified at all. I loved the decision. My brother, because I was on my way to London on Friday night, and my brother texted me. He said, "My God, we've declared," kind of thing, and I was just like, "Oh, I love that sort of thing." Yeah, like because I looked, I thought, how long's left? There's probably about 3 or 4 overs. That's what opening batsman in the world wants to go in for 3 or 4 overs at the end of against someone like Stuart Broad and I can't remember who it was. I think it was Ollie Robinson who bowled in that bit. I loved it. And if he hadn't have done that, we probably wouldn't have got a result in the game. And if that game had finished a draw, it would have been quite that was a bit dull then. So I admire Ben Foakes for doing it, and I mean he said I saw an interview he did with Nasser Hussain with like if they were 300 ahead on the last morning with loads of wickets in hand and that, would he declare? And he said, yeah, of course I would. I want to win a game. I want a result from a game. And that's what he was trying to do. He was trying to force the game, and if they'd won, everybody would be saying what a genius he is. So I don't think we can. I think it's harsh to criticise him on it. But I love it, and I love the whole idea of Bazball and just that not fear of losing, and that's what it is. And yes, they lost, but I mean, I sort of forgotten about the result really because it was just such a great test. I mean, I'm not someone like you, Matt, who gets all upset about the Australians, but winning and that. But I just love it. I just thought it was an amazing occasion, and I can't wait till Lords now.
Going back to the first test, Johnny Bairstow donned the gloves for England in the first test. The Yorkshireman impressed with the bat, hitting a runnable 78 in the first innings, but was less impressive in the field. And that's me being very polite. Bairstow missed stumping opportunities, which ultimately cost England about 200 runs. There have been calls for Surrey's Ben Foakes to don the gloves ahead of the second test at Lords. Steve, would you like to see Foakes behind the stumps for England next week? If so, who would you drop from the England team to accommodate the Surrey wicketkeeper? Because I think people have got very excited about the fact that Ben Foakes can get picked, but I don't think they've taken account that someone will have to be dropped. Yeah,
it is a difficult one. I think it possibly, if I was the selector or the captain, which luckily for England I'm not. The one change I would make would be that I would bring in Foakes for the rest of the series. But I don't think I would want to drop Bairstow from the team because of the potential for big scores from him. Yeah. It wasn't that long ago he scored. What did he do? Did he score centuries in 3 successive tests or something like that. I can't remember the details now, but it would seem harsh, but maybe Harry Brook would be the one you'd have to leave out, which would be a shame because he's done okay, he's done well, and he, even in the second innings, he was pivotal to the lead that we got in the second innings. But if you were to take Brook out, put Bairstow in at 5, or put Stokes at 5, Bairstow 6, Foakes at 7, I just think if you've got Foakes behind the stumps, he clearly is the best wicket keeper for that team at the moment, and therefore, it's such an important position. I think you need him in there. I wouldn't, people are saying they'd make 3 or 4 changes to the England side. I wouldn't do that because I think, again, as I said before, we very nearly won that game, in which case you wouldn't probably be changing anything at all. But I think Foakes behind the stumps is one change I would make.
Do you agree with that, Mark?
I was convinced you were going to say bring James Vince in. Steve.
Well, if England go 2 down, I will be saying that.
Yeah, but I think, no, you're right. I think Ben Foakes should be behind the stumps, and we forget he scored loads of runs for Surrey this year as well.
Yeah, he's a good batsman.
He is a class batsman as well. So, it's going to sort of touch on what you were going to say next. Ask me about Moeen Ali. Because there's no way Moeen Ali can play in the next test. I personally don't think. You hear the horror stories of he's lost 7 layers of skin on his finger. I mean, it was clear. If he was fully fit and got to bowl more overs than that, I think we probably would have won that test match. But I would drop Moeen Ali, and I would play without a specialist spinner. And I would use Joe Root. I mean, Joe Root's quality. He underused himself when he was captain, but all captains do that. They never bowl themselves. And we're going to find that with Ben Stokes. I know he's got the injury as well, but he won't bowl himself as much as he'll bowl himself when he needs to. But use Joe Root, drop Moeen Ali, bring in Ben Foakes, and then I think that's the team. The only other change I would probably think of is bringing in Mark Wood for one of the 3 seamers, because it is very one-dimensional to some extent. I mean, they're all quality bowlers. But
I was going to ask you both, do you think the Moeen Ali gamble paid off? But as Mark touched upon there, he was massively impeded by that finger injury. As you said there, do you think he would have had more of an impact, Steve, if he hadn't been knackered with his finger?
You would think so, wouldn't you? I mean, he took some, he actually bowled quite, considering he bowled quite well anyway. So I think the gamble was worth taking. It's a shame, isn't it, that that was seen to be the best option, and we haven't got a queue of other spinners waiting to push in, knocking on the door and trying to get in. There are a few contenders, but there are none that could say they were hard done by England turning to Ali. But I don't think he's going to play in the next test. Whether he then comes back after that, if his finger's okay, I don't know. It's not a bad shout to give Root the spinning duties, which allows you then to bring Foakes in. I think Moeen Ali did all that was expected of him, really. Scored a few runs as well, didn't he? It's difficult. You just don't want to make too many changes, I don't think, between tests at this stage and things.
Well, there was another change that I saw online, which did kind of take me by surprise, but having looked at his stats in the first test, I can kind of see it. There have been calls in some quarters for Jimmy Anderson to maybe miss out the second test. He took just 1 wicket across the 2 innings, and Stuart Broad led the attack for England. What would you both put Anderson's quiet performance down to? And what do you make of some calls to drop him? I must admit, it was the first time I've ever seen him bowl, and he looks like he's in his 40s, if that makes any sense.
It was disappointing, and that you could see that when they took that new ball in the final session there, what turned out to be the final session, and they gave it to Ollie Robinson. And I think I was listening to TMS at the time, and they noticed Jimmy Anderson talking to Ben Stokes, and they were speculating that he was saying, "You got to let Ollie bowl there with the new ball here, not me," kind of thing, because he clearly knew he wasn't bowling at his best. But it was, it's an interesting one, because you don't want dropping Jimmy Anderson. It doesn't sound right, but I think, Stuart Broad was fantastic, wasn't he? And seeing his knees pumping kind of thing is always great. But if you were going to change one of the bowlers, I think you would have to drop Jimmy and bring Mark Wood in for him, sort of thing. But it's a shame, really. I don't know what you put it down to, but like you said, he did start to look a little bit like his age was showing, which is a shame. But who knows? He could play, and I think he's got quite a good record at Lords. So Yeah, he'll come good again.
I think I would keep him in for Lords, but if he looks similar there, then it's time to bring Wood in his place. So you've got Wood, Broad, Robinson, which overall gives you a little bit more pace than Anderson, Broad, Robinson. But there have been times before where Anderson has looked as though we've seen the best of him, and then he's come back and he's had an amazing test. So let's at least give him the chance to do that at Lords in the second one next week.
Exactly. Going back to spinners, an interesting one. I saw someone the other day just saying, "What are the rules? Bring in Sophie Eccleston." I mean, if you saw her bowl yesterday in that test match, she bowled fantastic at Trent Bridge. I mean, what are the rules? I don't know. Could Sophie Eccleston play in a test match like that? She is as specialist spinners go, she is one of our best spinners, men or women. So
she'd have one.
Who knows? I mean,
she'd have one day's rest between the current test and that one, but
Oh yeah, that's true. That's very true. Yeah. So, but I mean, it sounds silly to say, but it'd be interesting to find out what the rules actually were, sort of thing, because I've seen women and girls play in the Sussex Cricket League and that. So and they've done well and they've held their own. I mean, it will never happen. I know that, but worth putting out there.
It's either that or we'll have Monty Panesar come out of retirement, which we'll very much look forward to. Yeah. On the Sussex front, we've not really touched upon Ollie Robinson and former Sharks player, not star, as Mark said, Travis Head, were both in the thick of the action for England and Australia, respectively. Robinson took 5 wickets for England, while Head hit 66 runs for Australia across both innings, scoring a half century in the first. Robinson also had a few choice words for Usman Khawaja after dismissing the Australian for 141 in the first innings. Mark, starting with you, how would you assess the performance of both players in the first test?
Ollie Robinson, I thought he bowled really well. He just lacked a bit of penetration at times and that, but I mean, as an umpire, I condemn everything he did and everything he said. But as a fan, I loved watching that whole thing. And just seeing it in the second innings as well, when he gave him a half volley. And what did he say? He said, "Oh, there was a nice half volley for you there." And he's like, "Oh," and Usman Khawaja said, "Oh, the field's up. That's why you're not a batsman." And that it's just great. It's great theatre, isn't it? I love it. But I thought they did well. And Travis Head, he looked good in the first innings, and gave them a bit of impetus, and actually probably hasn't got enough credit for keeping Australia in at that point, because if he'd got out early in that first innings, it could have they could have capitulated then, and it could have been a whole different story. But it's fine margins everywhere in it, isn't it? But Ollie Robinson, I think he'll be looking to take more wickets at Lords, definitely. So, Travis Head, he's one of those players that will turn in innings for Australia. But he got a good one in the second innings, didn't he? It was Moeen Ali caught in the slip by Joe Root, wasn't it? Yeah, he got a good one there. So, and he pulled a great face when he got out in that one as well, because just shock at how good the ball was, kind of thing. So, and he's got a great moustache. I was going
to ask Steve the most important question of the podcast: what do you make of Travis Head's tash? Well, I've said it all there, isn't it? I mean, this is where the analysis is needed. Now, what annoys me about Travis Head and Steve Smith is they both score more runs for Australia than they did for Sussex.
Yes.
Somebody needs to have a word with them and say, look, lads, you've got your priorities all wrong. You need to come to Sussex and get century after century after century. Then you need to go back to Australia, and that's just a practice for the next time you come to Sussex. So they're getting it all wrong. But let's hope that we can get them out cheaply at Lords anyway.
Yes. Well, I was going to ask you both. Firstly, after the first test, Steve, what is your prediction for this Ashes overall? I don't think as the Oracle, we need to know.
My pre-series prediction was 4-1 to England.
All right, so Australia have
rather optimistic. And it could still be 4-1 to England, but I'm now not so sure it will be 4-1 to England.
Well, I was going to ask you both, after the first test, have your predictions changed in any way, shape or form?
Well, I think there'll be a draw or a washout at some point. But I still think England will come back to win. I'm going to go 3-1 England for now.
I can't remember what I said, because there was one lot of predictions I gave where I said 4-0 England, I think, or 3-0 England, and then I think last week's podcast I said 3-2 England.
I'm pretty sure it was 3-2. You said.
Yeah, I think I said 3-2.
So different prediction each week, and one of them would be right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, nobody will remember. So I think 3-2. I'm sticking with 3-2. I I just can't see there being a draw. I don't think Ben Foakes will allow a draw to happen. So it's and if it does end 3-2, wow, what a series! It will just be immense.
A classic.
Yeah.
And we've kind of got your opinion on this, I think, Mark. But Steve, has your opinion changed on Bazball at all after the first test?
No. Still think it's the way to go. Don't think they should change their approach at the moment. It's it has the fans on the edge of their seats, doesn't it? You just don't. Joe Root comes out to bat, and you don't know what's he going to do first ball, or Jimmy Anderson for that matter. What shot is he going to attempt? No, I think it's good, and I think it's going to give you more success than failure if you persist with it. So keep on going.
Mark, you're pro Bazball, I think. No question.
Oh, I love it. Absolutely love it. But I just love the fact that like Brendan McCullum and Ben Foakes don't like the phrase Bazball, but we all just love it, don't we, in the media and that. I mean, a lot of people have taken it as it's too dynamic. We're trying to attack everything, but it's not about attacking everything. It's just playing the right type of cricket at the right moment in the game. And like the declaration, yes, it was brave, but it moved the game on, and it opened the game up massively in that. And I think that's what it's giving England the best chance to win the test match. And I think anything that does that and taking the fear away of losing makes a huge difference to a lot of players, because there was a lot of time. I mean, Steve's watched England longer than I have, but there's a lot of times where England have been so poor in test cricket, and it just looks like they're scared of losing. And
I can still remember the 20-year period where we didn't win a home Ashes series. Didn't win.
Amazing, isn't it?
1985 to 2005, and we don't want that again. So
I remember England being particularly rubbish when I was growing up in the 90s. And Mark Ramprakash always seemed to get 150 for England, but Australia would always win by about 300 runs.
It was grim.
Do you think, heaven forbid, Australia win the second test? Do you think there will be calls for obviously it depends on the manner of the defeat. If England do lose, do you think there will be calls for England to change their style if they do go 2-0 down?
I think there'll be calls, but I don't think they'll do it. I think they know what they want to do, and they will continue to do it as long as they're entertaining, as long as they're still competitive in the game. I don't think there's any reason why they would. But I think there will be. I belong to a lot of forums on Facebook. County Cricket Matters, one of them, and that, and some of the stuff that's said on there, it's just like they just want to go back to the boring old Test match cricket where Alistair Cook's 90 not out on the first day kind of thing. Which not criticising Alistair Cook, great player, blah blah blah, but I just can't see it. It's moved on. Cricket has moved on, and it needs to continue evolving. And Bazball is a big part of that. And I just think, people can call for it, but I don't think it will change.
Steve, you shook your head when I asked that question.
I don't think England will. I don't think England will change their approach mid-series, and I don't even think they would change it if they lost this series, because they're not going to be playing Australia again for 2 years, 2.5 years in another Ashes series, I think. So I think they'll persist with it beyond this. Only if they lose every series they play in a whole year might they look at it again. No, I think for now this is the approach, and they're gonna keep going with it.
And I think you've got to remember as well that Australia are a damn good side.
Oh, and
it's the first time we've come up again. First time we've come up against a side that we might have to adapt what Bazball is to, but they will find a way of doing it. And Pat Cummins, I saw a video the other day asking all the England players what one player would they have in their side from Australia, and they all said Pat Cummins. And the way he batted on that final bit was fantastic. He led the team well, and he's a great bowler as well. So I don't liking the Australians, but I really do like this Australian team. I think they're a really good team. They're playing it in the right way, and I like the way they're sort of trying to counteract Bazball, and it's really good. It's really interesting.
I think I said to you after the game, Mark, it's first time in quite a while that I have not begrudged an Australian victory. The way that they played, they definitely deserved it, and I feel no ill will. But maybe talk to me at the end of the Ashes test, and I might not be feeling the same way. How do we see the second one going? Who do you think will stand out for England or Australia? What do you see happening, chaps?
Thinking, the pressure's on England, isn't it? Because if Australia go 2 up, then that makes the series very difficult to win for England. But I think with the approach England have now got, that won't phase them at all. I think they'll just go into it. They'll treat it as a different game to the first test. With a similar team, a settled team. I suppose one worry is that people like Smith and Labuschagne haven't got the big runs yet. Is second test where one of them is going to bat for a whole day for 150. That's what England will have to try to avoid. But no, I think the same approach from England. Give it a go, see what happens.
And I think you're talking about Smith and Labuschagne. Ben Foakes obviously didn't start with the bat at Edgbaston. And I think I was there in, I can't remember what year it was. I think it might have been 2015 when he hit the fastest century at Lords against New Zealand. I think it was off 78 balls or something like that. I was there that day. And yeah, we need an innings like that from Foakes to really fire it up. And he's a great captain and I love watching him in the field and that. But he needs to step up with the bat a little bit now and sort of play that innings that will spark us into life. So I think Ben Foakes will shine in this one.
Well, thank you very much for your time, chaps. Brilliant as ever. You can catch up with all the latest sports news covering everything we've talked about today at sussexworld.co.uk/sport. Thank you very much for listening, and we will see you all next week.